On November 8th, 2016, our timeline experienced a political earthquake that permanently rewired the global brain. But somewhere in the multiverse, the needle misses the groove. The timeline splits. In our world, this was the morning of international panic, market spikes, and millions of people screaming into their pillows. But for Nick, it was just Tuesday. The absolute, terrifying absence of noise. While our phones were melting down with endless push notifications, Nick checks his device and finds a blank screen. No midnight policy shifts, no digital warfare, nothing. In our universe, the internet transformed into a permanent 24-hour psychological combat zone. In his universe, the digital coliseum froze solid before breakfast. We spent years dividing ourselves into slogans, factions, and matching hats. With a feeling of wonder, Nick looks outside and notices a complete vacuum of ideology, just people going to work. While our media built an empire out of analyzing single sentences for days at a time, the biggest story in the alternate universe is a 6-hour discussion on tax adjustments. Nick feels his blood pressure drop. He falls asleep without doom scrolling. He thinks he's safe. He has no idea he just entered a timeline where human emotion goes to die. Because removing the chaos didn't save this world, it created something worse. A quiet prison built from perfect compliance. Nick goes to work and finds a world that has settled into total clinical silence. The global heart rate flatlines. Linguistic innovation dies completely. Grammatical mistakes are just mistakes. Copy editors win. The word bigly never even makes it into the dictionary. High-ranking officials no longer get fired through chaotic late-night messages while negotiating international policy. Human resources returns to 12-page severance packages that take 6 weeks to approve. The element of surprise disappears. Foreign leaders no longer get dramatic nicknames. Geopolitics becomes terrifyingly polite. Long, structured summits replace 15-second sound bites. It's effective, it's organized, and it's completely unwatchable. By the time the national conversation reaches infrastructure, Nick is begging for a distraction. The first crack in Nick's fantasy appears somewhere nobody expected: the real world. Because once the chaos disappears from politics, everything else starts becoming weirdly, deafeningly quiet too. In his original timeline, the border debate consumed the entire internet. Walls, protests, viral clips, endless outrage. But here, it's just infrastructure paperwork. Nick opens the government proposal expecting controversy, and instead finds 1,200 pages of drainage funding schedules. No screaming debates, no viral moments, just policy. He clicks into a political livestream, hoping somebody finally loses their mind. But the speaker calmly explains subsection B of a transportation proposal. The livestream chat disables itself from boredom. That's when Nick notices something terrifying. In a world where Trump never dominates every algorithm, the internet isn't angry anymore. It's asleep. So Nick turns to Wall Street, hoping greed can still provide entertainment. But without tariff threats, trade war panic, or midnight presidential chaos, the stock market behaves like it took prescription sedatives. In this universe, CEOs sleep peacefully. No panic tweets, no economic jump scares, no waking up at 4 a.m. wondering if global trade collapsed overnight. Apparently, stability is incredible for blood pressure. Nick waits for a market crash, a diplomatic disaster, a financial meltdown, but the line never moves. Trade negotiations now take 3 years, pass 14 legal departments, and are announced using PowerPoint transitions. One economist actually calls the process comforting. Even TikTok somehow becomes less chaotic. No hearings, no national panic, no politicians accidentally asking senators how Wi-Fi works on live television. Instead, lawmakers quietly attend educational seminars explaining how algorithms work. And somehow, that feels worse. Teenagers continue dancing online, completely uninterrupted by geopolitical tension. Soybean prices stay normal. Washing machine prices stay normal. Everything stays painfully normal. And then Nick notices the financial news anchors. They aren't even reporting anymore. They're trying to stay awake on live television. That's when the horrifying realization finally hits him. In a world where Trump never became president, society didn't become enlightened. It became emotionally anesthetized. For years, Nick thought humanity wanted stability. But once stability arrived, everybody slowly started going numb. The chaos was never the bug. It was the stimulant. So, the year 2024 arrives. Nick watches in absolute awe as a familiar billionaire steps back onto the golden escalator, and the world collectively holds its breath, completely addicted to the spectacle once again. Nick rushes to the ballot box, overwhelmingly voting to renew the chaos, not for any specific policy, not for some grand strategic vision, but because he is desperate. Desperate to cancel the boring timeline, desperate to feel something again, desperate to bring back the greatest reality show on Earth. The establishment elite are left completely paralyzed in shock, unable to comprehend why humanity would willingly vote to return to the madness. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Nick watches the media industry throw the biggest celebration in human history. Cable networks roar back to life. Producers stop panicking. Editors start smiling. Breaking news graphics power back on. The machine wakes up. Because suddenly, there are headlines again, arguments again, refresh buttons again, attention again. The show is back. Social media stocks shoot to the moon overnight, and late-night comedians joyfully burn their amateur magic props on live television, celebrating the return of their automated script material. Walking back out into the vibrant, chaotic streets, Nick smiles. Not because everything is fixed, not because society suddenly became smarter, not because conflict magically became good, but because he finally understands something uncomfortable, the ultimate philosophical lesson of his journey. We love to complain about the noise, about the drama, about the outrage, about the absolute absurdity of modern politics. We swear we just want peace, normalcy, quiet, but the truth is, the universe without the chaos isn't a utopia. It wasn't paradise. It wasn't enlightenment. It was just a desperately long, agonizingly boring commercial break. And Nick knows humanity will always, eventually, change the channel back to the greatest reality show on Earth. So, what do you think? Would you survive in the perfectly boring timeline? Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for our next trip through the multiverse timelines. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next timeline.